My name is Gary Dobbs and I'm a published writer, a professional writer, a successful writer. I think. Successful writer. At least I think I am. See these books here? All these are my books. These are books which I've written. Each and every one of these here are professionally published. That's not self-published through any online platform, although I have done a little bit of self-publishing. We'll talk about that soon. But these are all professionally published with recognized publishers. So yes, I'm a successful author. I think so. Now, I've made some notes here because in this video I'm going to give you the reality of what it means to be a writer, a professional writer, then a published writer in 2025. So I've made some notes here so I don't miss out on any points. And I've also got a copy of the contract here from my last book, my latest book, my current book. And I'm just going to discuss some of the points in this contract because I really do want to give you the brutal truth of what it means to be a writer, a professional writer in 2025. And also in this video, I'm going to review a beer. And this is a old style, British style ale. It's called Old Tom. It comes from F. Robinson's. And this is celebrating its 125th year of brewing Old Tom Ale. The actual company goes back longer than that, longer than 125 years ago. So I'm going to review that while I talk about my writing career and what it means to be a professional writer in 2025. So I'm going to start off by opening the beer. Now this bottle claims to be a limited edition, but when researching what others have thought about this beer earlier, I checked out a few reviews, and a few of them had this bottle saying it was limited edition, but on the cap it tells you when it was brewed. This was brewed in 2025, so this limited edition, I also saw a caps on YouTube of one reviewer from 2024, and there was one from all the way back in 2022, so I'd like to know how F. Robinson's define a limited edition. So anyone at Mr. Robinson's listening, then leave a comment down below. But we'll talk about the beer now. As I say, this is an old style ale. It's very strong. It's 8.5% per volume, so that's pretty bloody strong. But let's crack this open and then I'll talk about the writing. As I first discovered books, spending my adolescence devouring pulpy paperbacks from the likes of George Gilman, Guy Smith, Richard Stark, Oliver Strange, James Herbert. I'd always wanted to be a writer. I could produce an entire video just naming names of authors who dominated my imagination during my adolescent years. Now, I never had much time for schooling. I rebelled against the system, and I spent much of my school life like a modern day Huck Finn, bunking off school and spending my days down the woods making campfires, reading comics, fishing, swearing and smoking cigarettes. Though I console myself in the fact that there are a lot of really well-known writers who were academic failures. F. Scott Fitzgerald for one, Ray Bradbury, Truman Capote, Mark Twain, Jack Kerouac, William Faulkner. I mean, there are many of them. And so, throughout this fact that I wasn't academically minded and I didn't really take to school, I still harbored the stubborn dream that one day I could be a writer, a successful writer. It's very thick, almost treacly. It's like a port wine. Chocolatey, biscuity, oaty aroma on the nose. I'm not sure how to fully describe that, but it's nice. So let's continue with the Main subject was always a dream when I was a youngster that I could be a writer one day. And rich. Duh. Now that's not the reality for most writers, and even books that end up on bestseller lists don't as a rule make their authors wealthy. The way authors ultimately end up wealthy is after a long career and several books out. You know, we can't all be Stephen King or J.K. Rowling. I mean, you're three authors, your household names, who were never able to support themselves from their writing include the likes of H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe, and Emily Dickinson. So, writing books is not a career, at least not in the way that I think many of us define the word career. Writing and a comfortable financial lifestyle is, I don't think, the reality for most of us. Now, let's take a look at this pile of books here, all of which I've written, okay? That's Arkansas Smith by Jack Martin. That was my second Western that I wrote for Robert Hale. Jack Martin is my grandfather's name. My first novel I published with Black Horse was Tarnished Star. And I didn't want to use my own name for Westerns because I didn't think Gary Dodd sounded Western enough. My grandfather, Jack Martin, loved the old Western movies. He's the one that instilled the love of the genre in me. We'd watch the old Westerns on TV, you know. When I was a kid, I'd watch them with him. So, there we are, that heavy Jack Martin. Now, I've even written comic books. Here's Commandos edition, Red Beret, which I wrote several years back. So, here's another comic book, The Cardiff Blitz. Down Among the Dead by Gary Dobbs. This is a crime novel. Here we have Tarnished Star by Jack Martin again, which was my first published novel all the way back in 2009. An interesting fact about the Tarnished Star, as I say, this was my first novel, and to me it was a moment leading up to the publication of this book. It was a moment of being able to present myself that all these years of writing, I wasn't just wasting my time. This was going to be my first published book, and I was really excited. Now, this is going back to 2009, so as I say, when I wrote this, it would have been about 2008. When I got it accepted, it would have been 2008, and there's a long lead time then to actually seeing it in print, so I started up a blog, The Tainted Archive, which I managed to secure thousands of regular visitors to my blog by writing a mass, and this blog's still online, and I'll be linking down to it below. But this book, The Tarnished Star, as I say, Robert Hale specialised in producing hardcover books for the library trade, chiefly for the library trade. You could still buy them from bookshops, but you had to order them. They were never there at point of sale, so you had to order them, or you could buy them online off companies like Amazon and so forth. But it was a limited print run. And I created such interest in this book, such buzz, that it actually sold out before it was even published, because its originally scheduled print run of so many thousand suddenly sold out on pre-orders alone. So this book actually went into print, went into reprint before it was actually printed. So that I'm really proud of that. But that ties into the fact that I have self-published a bit. This was years after Tarnished Star came out, and I wrote a series of cozy crime novels with an edge. That's the Granny Smith series, which I stand by and I still think are very good books. They are cozy crime, they're comedic crime, but they've got an edge. I mean, Granny Smith is described in the books as Miss Marple on steroids. And the books are available now, and I will be linking down to them down below. Initial sales for the Granny Smith series was quite positive. I remember at one point I was selling for a few days, I was selling something like 300-400 copies a day, but it didn't last for a long period, although the Granny Smiths have got some good reviews. These days sales have fallen off, so please check that out. Another book, let's go back to this a minute, that's A Tumbleweed Trail, another Jack Martin, Basket of Red Rock, The Ballad of Delta Rose, Wild Bill Williams, Down Among the Dead, my crime novel. I mentioned the comic books I've written, didn't I? And I've also written a lot of non-fiction books, and I still write non-fiction books for the wonderful guys at Pen and Sword Publications. A Date with a Hangman, A Dark History of Whiskey, Dark Valleys, Cardiff and the Valleys in the Great War, Cardiff and the Valleys at War. Those latter two books here are kind of companion pieces. They both concentrate on the war, but the home front. The Cardiff and the Valleys at War, 39 to 45, obviously the Second World War, and Cardiff and the Valleys in the Great War is obviously the First World War. Most of my books are still in print. Even the Robert Hale, Jack Martin Westerns can be had from your local library, or there are several of these are available as ebooks by Crowwood Press, who are the guys who these days own the imprint of Robert Hale Black Horse Westerns Limited. The beer is it's very thick, it's very old style. This is a traditional British ale. It's very nice, I do like it. Though how many of these you could drink before falling over is debatable. I mean, as I say, this is 8.5% by volume. It's a strong beer, but it's a very good beer. So as I say, I am a professional writer, a successful writer, but in terms of monetary gains, then I'm probably not. You couldn't define my work as a success in terms of monetary gains. But there is the fact that a number of people have come up to me over the years and said, hey, I read your latest book, I really enjoyed it, that's reward enough. I've still got to do a day job. We can't all be Stephen King or J.K. Rowling or Joe Nesbo or Lee Child or what's the guy who never writes his own books these days, James Patterson. Well, Balkan tobacco mixture is very nice. And so, there we are. Was it worth it, all these years of daydreaming, of thinking I could be a writer? I suppose in terms of I got books out there, there's even a Wikipedia entry on me. You can get my books anywhere, they're still in print. You can get them, you can order them from your local library, so yes, I suppose I am a success. But in monetary gains, maybe not so much, and that is the reality of writing these days, of trying to be a professional writer these days. You do have to hang on to your day job. I promised earlier I'd talk about the contract of my latest book. Now, I don't want to give too much here because it's got personal details of myself. I'm a publisher. But this is a contract, it's a lot of legalese. So it starts off with, you've got all this bump here, tells you what book it is, blah blah blah. And it says, whereas the author is writing a literary work at present entitled, and this is actually a Dark History of Whiskey, to consist of approximately 60,000 words and approximately 30 black and white mono illustrations. Now I love writing for Pen and Sword, and the books they bring out I think are wonderful. I mean, look at the job they've done on A Dark History of Whiskey, you know. Absolutely fantastic presentation there. It's currently only available in hardcover, though there will be a paperback. This drink has given me the hiccups. Perhaps that was the pipe. So there you have it. Am I successful? In a sense, I suppose I am. I'm published, I'm a professional writer, whatever that means. You can buy my books, you can Google me, there's even a Wikipedia page on me, as I've said. Reviews, both good and bad, online. But in terms of monetary gain related to the amount of work I put into my writing over the years, am I a success? Not really, but I've got no choice. It's in me, it's part of me, it's who I am a writer. I get stories boiling away in my brain, I get ideas boiling away in my brain, and unless I start engaging in them, putting, as I did in the early days, my fingers to the keyboard, typing out on the old electric typewriter, these days on the word processor. Actually, from the typewriter I went to a basic word processor. It was an Amstrad. Oh my gosh, Was it an Amstrad 6501? It was a dedicated word processor anyway, and I thought that was the ultimate high tech, and these days I write on a computer. Running upstairs in my office, Linux. I use Linux Mint and LibreOffice, and down here in the living room I'm using Windows 11 and Microsoft Word. This beer is pretty decent, but it's not for everyone. It's a very strong beer. Probably 2 or 3 glasses of this and you'd be falling over. But it's a really nice representation of the way beer perhaps used to be back in the day. And so, how do I define myself as a success? When I've written, what is it in total, 17 books? I've written magazine articles. Have got to be more than 100 published magazine articles over the years. I've had work on the radio. I've had work in a number of... I've even done some corporate work, putting a newsletter together for a company many years ago. That was very lucrative, actually, but not the type of work that I really enjoy. But yes, I suppose I'm a success, because when someone comes up to me and says, hey, I read your book, I love your book, or someone, when I'm down the local pub, shout out to the Griffin Inn, which we call the Bog, at my local, I'm having a pint, and someone comes on to me, as happened recently, and you know, they're really impressed at the fact I'm a writer, and they want to know more about what I do, then that's all the reward I need. It would be nice to one day write that book that pushes me into the stratosphere, pushes me up with the sale figures of Stephen King and J.K. Rowling and Joe Nesbo and Lee Child. Watch it, guys, Gary Dobbs is coming for you. But it's who I am, it's what I've got to do, I've got no choice rather, and so stubborn, determined, thriving on blind faith I continue. That's who I am. I'm a writer. A fool on the hill. Brazen-faced old optimist. Cheers.